Hello, wandering souls of the internet, and welcome back to the Purgatory podcast. So we've taken a little break.
It's been a just a short vacation.
It's
We have been very busy,
yeah,
and we both got tonsillitis at different points.
yeah. I actually worked
And
out I worked out the entire sequence of what happened. So we were meant to record by we were supposed to record at the end of October, like right after like Halloween for like having another episode ready. And then I got tonsillitis and I couldn't record. And then I got my tongue pierced, so then I couldn't talk for another week. And then after my tongue piercing had healed, Flair got tonsillitis and couldn't talk. And then our schedules didn't line up, and then it was Christmas time, and then and then it got to New Year's, and then I had exams the second week back, so I couldn't record, and so now it's now.
so, as you probably guessed, it's been about 2 months since we've seen you guys. So we do apologize for that. However, we do have something very, very cool for you guys today.
We do.
Hopefully it is something that you guys will find interesting. This is, like I said, we're supposed to be having this done a while ago.
Yeah.
But I did want to still do this topic because it is a very interesting topic. And it is a really cool segue into maybe future episodes about this certain niche of obscure horror. So, today on the Purgatory podcast, we will be covering SCP-3008, The Infinite IKEA. So, regarding the SCPs, there's a little bit about them I want to talk about before we get to the actual one we're going to be talking about today. Before that, Lynx, do you have anything you want to talk about regarding this SCP in general?
Yes, so I'm going to give kind of like my usual brief summary or overview of what we're going to be looking at, just so everybody kind of has an idea of what's going on. So, SCP-3008 is effectively an IKEA, just like it says in the title. However, within this IKEA, there is a day and night cycle, and around the IKEA is IKEA workers. Now, if you're in this space, it is considerably dangerous if you're in the wrong areas, and when we go over the story, you'll understand a little bit more, but the main aspect of SCP-3008 is survival.
Okay. That's really interesting. See, it almost gives me the Backrooms vibes, right? So it's almost like you're trapped in this never-ending maze, like almost like the Labyrinth of sorts, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And surprisingly, this story does have a Minotaur-like monster. We'll get to that in a moment, but we do have a lot to cover on this episode. But for right now, I want to go over the object classes. So this is what defines different SCPs and different objects and stuff that they do have in this wiki that will be down in the description linked below. They have a whole site for SCPs. It's almost like its own little different side of creepypasta, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they have so many of these things that pretty much we could run our channel on just covering these if we really wanted to.
There are so many.
But for now, I just want to go over the primary classes that we have here. There are a bunch more, but for right now, we're going to be focusing on the main three.
So first, there are primary classes, and these primary classes have 3 in this section. So first, we have safe class. So safe class SCPs are anomalies that are easily and safely contained. This is often due to the fact that the Foundation has researched the SCP well enough that containment does not require significant resources, or that the anomalies require a specific and/or conscious activation or trigger. Classifying an SCP as safe, however, does not mean that handling or activating it does not pose a threat. So, even though it's said to be safe, it still could harm somebody.
I guess the best way to picture these in your mind, if you're having trouble understanding it, is say they had a SCP that was a gun, right? A world ending, like if you pull the trigger, the world will be destroyed, right? This would be classified as safe if you could simply just lock it in a box and throw the box away, essentially, right?
Yeah,
That would be
exactly.
qualified as safe, even though the object is a horrible, fatal danger to everything we know, right? So
Mm-hmm.
going down this class list does not mean that the object itself is safe or not safe. It is how easy it is to actually contain it.
Exactly. So second up, we have a Euclid. So the Euclid class of SCPs are anomalies that require more resources to contain completely, or where containment isn't always reliable. Usually this is because the SCP is insufficiently understood or inherently unpredictable. Euclid is the object class with the greatest scope, and is usually a safe bet that an SCP will be in this class if it doesn't easily fall into any of the other standard object classes. So these ones are obviously equally as dangerous, I would say, but these ones also have that that fear of the unknown. I feel like it puts that fear into a person because it says it's unpredictable, so like you don't know what's gonna happen
It
next,
almost it
kind of
almost seems
thing.
like they default to this class sometimes. You know what I mean? Like they if they don't
Mm-hmm.
know a whole lot about it, they might default because classes can change. Um,
Yeah.
usually, I would assume they put these labels on newer entries or just ones they don't quite understand yet with the technology that we have.
Yeah, exactly. It's very much it's more like a timeline really than anything
Oh, for
else. You know,
sure.
when you first find it, you know, you got Euclid because you don't know what you're handling and you don't quite know what to do yet. And then you have safe for when you know how to contain it, and then obviously there is the third class. Um, so the third class is the Keter class. So these SCPs are anomalies that are exceedingly difficult to contain consistently or reliably, with the containment procedures often being extensive and complex. The Foundation often can't contain these SCPs due to not having solid understanding of the anomaly or lacking the technology to properly contain or counter it. Akita SCP does not mean the SCP is dangerous, just that it is simply very difficult or costly to contain. So, an example of this would be say if you had a bouncy ball that would never ever stop bouncing, you'd find it hard to go and get it because it's difficult to contain. Like, say, it could break through any type of material. That way it cannot be contained, or if you find a resource that can contain it, it's very expensive, but it's not dangerous. So that kind of is what the Kita class is.
Now you're probably wondering, when we've been talking about these classes, you're probably wondering, what the hell does SCP stand for, right? So the Foundation goes with a specific motto, I guess. It is called Secure, Contain, Protect. That is their motto, and that's also what SCP stands for. So hopefully it doesn't get too confusing as we dive deeper into this. So regarding the SCP-3008 or the Infinite IKEA, this object class is Euclid. So again, like we were talking about before, it is not exactly super understood, but they have a good idea of what makes it tick and how to contain it, right? And we'll get to all the special containment procedures right now. The retail part containing SCP-3008 has been purchased by the Foundation and converted into site. All public roads leading to or passing by site have been redirected. The entrance to SCP-3008 is to be monitored at all times, and no one is to enter SCP-3008 outside of testing, as permitted by the senior researcher. Humans exiting the SCP are to be detained and then debriefed prior to the administration of amnetics. Dependent upon the duration of their stay in the SCP, a cover story may need to be generated prior to their release. Any other entities exiting the SCP are to be terminated.
This makes me really nervous. The idea that the site is, you know, we don't know, it's redacted quite literally on the website. It is two little blank blocks, and that no one can go in or out, and the fact that cover stories might be needed just kind of that really puts you on edge. It gives you like almost like witness protection.
Oh, for sure. And not to mention the mention of other entities exiting this IKEA. Like what are we what are we talking about here, right? Like what kind of monsters lie in here? Like we were talking about before, may have a minotaur deep inside of it. It seems like there might be more than one as well. So
Yeah.
it's definitely an odd thing to put right before the description for sure.
SCP-3008 is a large retail unit previously owned and branded as IKEA, a popular furniture retail chain. A person entering SCP-3008 through the main entrance and then passing out of sight of the doors will find themselves translocated to SCP-3008-1. This displacement will typically go unnoticed, as no change will occur from the perspective of the victim. They will generally not become aware until they try to return to the entrance. SCP-3008-1 is a space resembling the inside of an IKEA furniture store, extending far beyond the limits of what could physically be contained within the dimensions of the retail unit. Current measurements indicate an area of at least 10 kilometers squared, with no visible external terminators detected in any direction. Inconclusive results from the use of laser rangefinders has led to the speculation that the space may be infinite. SCP-3008-1 is inhabited by an unknown number of civilians trapped within prior to containment. Gathered data suggests that they have formed a rudimentary civilization within SCP-3008-1, including the construction of settlements and fortifications for the purpose of defending against SCP-3008-2.
So already they're bringing up the entities that reside in here, right? So they're labeled differently from the actual IKEA itself, which is labeled SCP-3008-1. These ones have a -2 at the end, so it's almost like an extension of the SCP, which is interesting.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I didn't think of it like that.
SCP-3008-2 are humanoid entities that exist within SCP-3008-1. While superficially resembling humans, they possess exaggerated and inconsistent bodily proportions, often described as being too short or too tall. They possess no facial features, and in all observed cases, wear a yellow shirt and blue trousers, consistent with the IKEA employee uniform. SCP-3008-1 has a rudimentary day-night cycle, determined by the overhead lighting within the space and activating and deactivating at times consistent with the opening and closing times of the original retail store. During the night, instances of -2 will become violent towards all other life forms within -1. During these bouts of violence, they have been heard to vocalize phrases in English that are typically versions of,
"The store is now closed. Please exit the building."
Once day begins, -2 instances immediately become passive and begin moving throughout -1, seemingly at random. They are unresponsive to questioning or other verbal cues in this state, though will react violently if attacked. -1 is known to have one or more exits within. These exits do not appear to have a fixed position, making it difficult to leave -1 once inside. Using any other door besides the main entrance to enter the structure or breaking through the walls of the retail unit leads to the non-anomalous interior of the original store. Since containment began, 14 individuals have managed to escape SCP-3008. Following extensive debriefing, all individuals have been administered amnestics and been released.
This is terrifying.
Absolutely.
Especially because they're giving them amnestics, so it means that they are giving them something in order for them to forget what they've seen. So this also brings to mind, obviously, the idea of when the -2s become violent at nighttime. What the hell are they seeing in there to require an amnestic?
It's almost like skinwalkers of sorts. You know what I mean? Like it's weirdly described. Like it almost gives me like Slender Man vibes because you know the inconsistent features, and there's multiple of them. So it definitely is a weird thing, especially to see in the quote unquote night portion. I can't even imagine seeing like in a dark warehouse people, you know, running after you with big hands, big heads, small, you know, different types of body proportions, and it's almost like Uncanny Valley, you know. It's really really disturbing. I can't even imagine. I mean, I honestly I would be happy to forget what I've seen in there, you know.
Yeah, like no wonder they're giving them amnestics. It's like, dude, we feel bad for you. Like you deserve it. Like we don't want you to go through that again.
I will say, regarding this description, there is actually a specific incident that we'll be covering. So that is the main focus of today's story. So we'll read this incident to you, and then we'll get right into that.
Incident 3008-1. At 12:37 a.m. on of the 2000, a human male exited the SCP-3008, followed 10 seconds later by an instance of -2. -2 caught and killed the man before itself being terminated by armed response personnel. This incident represents the only time an incident of a -2 that had been exiting the SCP. A full autopsy on the corpse was performed. There is an autopsy log that explains all of this. The man was carrying an IKEA branded journal, seemingly to document his time within the SCP, transcribed below verbatim.
If it's not obvious already, there was this is one of the instances of one of the humans actually escaping this SCP. Unfortunately, we know that he was killed by the other entity that resides in there, -2. But the transcription of the document is definitely very long and very brutal.
It is very, very long.
So I guess, without any further ado, let's get right into the story.
So, I'm writing this to document what I can only assume is my sudden descent into insanity. I can't possibly be that bad a navigator, and yet as I write this, I've been trapped in IKEA for 2 days. I haven't seen another person in the entire time that I've been here. I thought it was just a prank at first. Turn the place into a maze, get all the people out, and see how long it takes me to get lost. And then everyone has a good old laugh. Realized that wasn't the case when I tried to backtrack. Everything had changed, so I ended up lost. Instead of the exit, it was just row after row of bookcases. So I'm trapped in IKEA. Sounds like the setup of a bad joke. The lights went out at 10 p.m, nearly gave me a fucking heart attack. That loud electrical funk sound, and then pitch blackness. Place is full of beds though, and my phone has a torch on it, but no damn signal. So I found a bed and went to sleep. Spent the most of the next day trying to find my way out with no luck. Did find a restaurant serving those meatballs though, so at least I won't starve. That's probably the punchline to that joke. Anyway, they were still warm and fresh, but I haven't seen anyone around who could have cooked them. Made my way back to the beds before lights cut out again, since it's too dark to search with them off. It's 9:10 a.m. now. The lights came back on a little while ago. I'm sure I've searched the entire area around where I came in now, and the exit obviously isn't here. So I'm going to pick a direction and hope for the best.
Wow. So immediately we just get thrown into... He thinks this is... Obviously, he's in denial. Complete denial.
Oh, 100%. He's like, this is a joke.
Yeah, which, I mean, you know, I would be the same way if I was in this scenario.
Yeah, it's the most rational thing to think.
But, I mean, like, day 2, that's day 2 of this, and still thinking it's, like, a joke is crazy. Like, what kind of friends do you have at this point, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, literally, who's taking you to IKEA?
Who needs enemies with friends like this? Like,
no, real. Fuck? It's so concerning.
Day 3 of my magical IKEA mystery adventure. If I wasn't sure that there was something seriously weird about this place before, I am now. Locked for 3 hours in a more or less straight line, insert IKEA joke here, before I came across a ladder next to one of those huge stock shelves they have here. Before I climbed up to get my bearings, and it looks like this place just stretches on forever. Like that scene from Lion King. Except instead of trees and grass, it was all just shelves and tables and shit. I did see a person moving not too far away though, so I headed over. Thought it was a staff member at first. It was wearing the uniform, and hell, maybe it was. Maybe freakish 7-foot tall monsters with long arms, short legs, and no faces, or just the kind of thing that they want working at the Super IKEA. Damn thing completely ignored me though. And with no eyes or ears, I can't even be sure it knew I was there. Thought about shoving it or something to get its attention, but its hands were big enough to crush a watermelon, so I decided against it. It just kept moving along, and eventually I lost sight of it, so I decided to carry on the way I was going. Anyway, no comfy bed for me tonight. Looks like I've entered the impossibly hard and pointy table section of the store. Guess I'll have to make do with some bunched up tablecloths. My phone battery died during the day too. Didn't fucking work anyway, but I feel like I've just lost some vital lifeline.
So this actually gives us a fantastic look at what it's like to be around the -2s, the IKEA workers during the day. Like obviously the description of hands big enough to crush a watermelon.
That is definitely intimidating.
Insane.
I definitely wouldn't want to provoke those creatures, so it's definitely a good move on him to just leave it alone.
Yeah, 100%. Honestly, when he was describing it, I was just kind of thinking like, why on earth would you even debate trying to get its attention in the first place if it has no eyes and ears? Why would you want to interact with that?
You almost wonder. Like he does seem smarter than the average protagonist here.
Yes.
In the horror stories, but it definitely seems like, why would you even, once you realize, why aren't you immediately freaking out? Because that's not something you see every day,
Yeah, exactly. And another thing that I picked up on, obviously he's like writing like day 3 and like what day he's on. It occurred to me, it's like these people, like their families have no idea where these people are for days on end, and what do they get, like say if they do get out, and obviously let's say they don't have the amnesty, what are you going to tell them? I was trapped in IKEA for a week?
Yeah. Yeah, that's probably why they come up with the cover stories, and
Exactly.
It's definitely helpful for sure.
You ever see those cartoons where they're going through doors in a hallway and they just pop out of another door in the same hallway? That's how I feel right now. I've seen nothing but the same identical bookshelf for 2 days now. Just row after row after row of them. I mean, come on, I love books as much as the next guy, but this is excessive. I'm obviously still moving forwards though. I can see signs hanging overhead passing by. Too bad none of them say exit. Not sure who I was addressing that question to. Let's just say it was practice for my autobiography I'm going to write when I get out of here. I'll call it My Perfectly Normal Trip to Regular Old IKEA.
Well, at least he's got his his sense of humor still intact.
Yeah, that's a really good, it's always good to see. But something that I want to quickly point out is, I'm sure we'll show a screenshot on screen for you guys now, but there is, just underneath that, there is a line that's crossed out, and it's if I ever get out. And I'm assuming he was supposed to finish it off here, but he's crossed it out within the journal. So that kind of suggests to us that even though, he's trying to keep it upbeat, he's still talking about, joking and things like that, he still does worry if he is ever going to get out.
For sure. I mean, you don't really know. At this point, it's been, 2 days, 3 days, how long? Day 3, so it's definitely, he's starting to wonder. I would be starting to wonder, Finally found some other people. Yeah, Turns out I'm not the only poor bastard trapped in here. Lucky for me, I guess. It's my 6th night here. 2 of those staff things came at me in the dark. Different from the first one I saw, but still messed up. I heard them coming. They were saying that the store's closed and I had to leave the building, all nice and polite-like. I'm not sure which part was weirder, that they didn't have mouths or that they were apparently trying to kill me while they were saying it. Came at me like rabid dogs. So, I legged it. Sprinting through the IKEA in the dark like a fucking madman. I saw it when I cleared another stand of those giant stock shelves, all lit up with torches and floodlights. They've built a whole town in here. Got a massive wall built out of shelves and beds and tables and whatever else. I swear to God, it was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. Anyway, I guess they saw me coming, or maybe they heard my manly bellows of fear. Because they had the gate open and 2 people were waving me in. Heard the staff thing slam into the gate behind me after it was closed, still politely informing us all that the store is now closed. They wandered off eventually, though. They call the town Exchange because that's what's on the sign hanging from the ceiling directly above it. Exchange and returns. All lit up against the night using the lights they've found and plugged into the power lines. And there are beds and food and people. Over 50 wonderful people with regular-sized limbs and a full set of facial features. It's now my 7th night here, and the first one I have not spent in darkness. A full week living in an IKEA. There's probably a TV show of that somewhere.
This, again, is another really good demonstration of the workers, once again, talking about, obviously, not only the fact that they are violent at night, but the way that they're violent, describing them as rabid dogs.
Yeah, it is definitely, it's definitely interesting, the description. It's almost like they're primal, right? It seems like, the fact that they have extended and disproportionate body features, that maybe that reverts them into some kind of terrifying monster. Or maybe they never even were human in the first place. It's a hard thing. Or maybe this is what happens to the humans that are in here for way too long.
Yeah.
You just don't really know it. It can be anything.
That's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, where do these workers come from? Are they, previous people now, a shell of a human being? Or is it that these come from the SCP itself? Like, do they come from inside? Now that I'm around other people, I'm starting to feel more normal. Maybe normal isn't the word, but after a week with only the sound of my own footsteps for company, I was becoming increasingly sure that I'd just gone nuts. That I was tied up in some padded room somewhere, banging my head against the wall. But no, I feel quite sane now, thank you very much. Apparently, there are other towns out there. Some with more people, some with less. I found that fairly mind-boggling. How can that many people go missing with no one noticing? Surely someone would have noticed that everyone who goes to IKEA seems to fucking vanish. Or maybe it's not everyone. Maybe we're just the lucky ones. The people here just call those staff monster things the staff. Apparently they are fine during the day, minding their own business, walking the aisles. As soon as those lights go out though, they go fucking bonkers. So, during the day, people go out to find food, water, and whatever else they need. Apparently there are restaurants and shops around that randomly get restocked. No one knows how. Maybe the staff do it? Apparently they aren't very good at their jobs though, because the restocking sometimes takes a while, which means the food needs to be rationed. Maybe if they weren't so busy chasing people around in the dark, they'd get more done. Anyway, when night comes, the staff go nuts and everyone holds up inside the walls. Apparently it's the same everywhere in this place, whatever this place is. The IKEA, from whence all other IKEAs sprang. Or maybe we're all still just in regular IKEA, and this is some fever dream brought on by mind-numbing boredom. Who knows?
Been here for 10 days now. Most of the people I asked said they stopped keeping track a long time ago. And one guy, Chris, said he'd been here for years. Years. Apparently there are rumors of people who do manage to get out, and of people who see the exit, only to have it vanish before their very eyes. I get the feeling not everyone believes that, but I do. Explains how we got stuck in here in the first place. Sort of. And I mean, come on. Staff monsters, row after endless row of high-quality Swedish furniture. I don't know why they would find a disappearing door so hard to believe in. Anyway, I went out scavenging for food at a nearby shop with Sandra and Jerry. Once you learn the landmarks of this place, it's not so hard to navigate. The overhead signs help a lot, but there are others. Not too far in the distance, a huge section of those giant stock shelves had collapsed against each other, and way off in the east. We all assume it's east anyway. Apparently IKEA doesn't sell compasses. Is some kind of tower that looks like it's made of wood. Reaches all the way up to the ceiling. Maybe they're trying to break out through the roof. Lights up at night, so there must be people there. But it's apparently a few days' walk, which means it must be miles away. So no one really knows for sure. Apparently, I got incredibly lucky sleeping out in the open for a week without getting ripped to bits by the staff. That's me. Lucky, lucky, lucky. We found some food in the shop. I guess the staff restocked it during the night, which was nice of them. There was a telephone on the wall, so I figured I'd try it out. There was a voice on the other end, but they were just talking nonsense. Random words strung together with no real meaning. You ever see a video of someone with aphasia? Kinda sounded like that. Didn't answer me when I spoke to them anyways. Sandra says the phones in here are all the same. Oops. Asking the general questions again.
I think this is a really good demonstration of the fact that he is slowly losing it. Yeah, he's losing his mind because he's making far less jokes, and the jokes that he does make are about his sanity, kind of
sure.
Asking the general questions again, literally asking literally nobody questions.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's quite clear that it's seriously taking a toll on him, even though he's around people and he said he feels more sane. He clearly is still very much struggling with being in the infinite IKEA.
I mean, it is really interesting though that the staff are still taking care of them in a way, making sure that they don't starve. So it's almost like they're two different separate entities, in the day and night cycle. It's really cool that they have that I guess mechanic, for lack of better words, so they don't die of starvation, because that would be my first thought, is if you're stuck and if you're lost somewhere, for a long period of time, you have to really worry about starvation, because if you don't know where your next meal is coming from in a place like this, it's a serious problem. So it is really nice that the only, I guess, threat is the staff that is helping them. So it's a weird conundrum there, but it is very, very cool to see.
Yeah, it's interesting to think of why they change their minds. Kind of is this something that's a rule, just a rule that's been put in, at nighttime you're allowed to kill, during the day you're not allowed to kill, and you absolutely must restock shit, or it's is this something that is just innately built into them? You start to wonder these very impossible questions of
for sure.
why,
It's almost like it's their quote unquote nature, and that's just kind of how their cells are built, the instincts that they have. They have to so it's it gets more animalistic as the time goes on, which is really interesting.
I was thinking last night, the ceiling on this place is pretty high, and as far as anyone can tell, it goes on forever. shouldn't there be some kind of weather in here? I'm sure I read about some NASA building that was so big that it had its own weather patterns with clouds and stuff. This place is definitely bigger than that, but now that I think about it, I'm pretty sure I've never felt so much as a temperature change in here. I'll add it to the grand list of weird bullshit.
The staff attacked the exchange last night. Must have been 20 or 30 of them, just all asking us to leave the store, calm as you like, while trying to smash the walls down with their bare hands. Apparently this happens pretty regularly, so everyone was prepared for it. Knives from the restaurants, lawnmower blades made into hatchets, a fire axe. One guy, Wazim, even made a functional crossbow. Anyway, the walls have holes in them, which I hadn't noticed before. Specifically, so we can stab out the staff when they try to attack. Took a couple of them down myself. They don't seem to bleed, which is weird, but they do go down as easy as a regular person once you start poking holes in them. We had to haul the bodies away in the morning. Apparently the dead ones will attract more during the night, so we had to get them away from exchange. We have a couple of those trolley things that they moved We have a couple of those trolley things they use to move big boxes around, so we loaded them up and took them over to pickup. Apparently people just name everything in here after whatever sign is hanging overhead. The pickup was grisly. There were hundreds, maybe thousands of dead staff all piled up. But there was no smell, which was a blessing. Apparently, in addition to not bleeding, these things don't rot either. My curiosity got the better of me when we were unloading them, so I took a look at one of the more cut up ones. They're just skin, or something that looks like skin, all the way through. No muscle, no bone, no organs. Are they even really alive in the first place? They certainly seem like they have bones when they're moving around, pounding on the walls. And I'm sure I felt more resistance than just skin when the knife went in during the night. Maybe something happens to them when they die, just one more thing to the ever-increasing list of weird shit that goes on here, I guess.
I love this one. This one obviously takes more of a anatomy side, which I, of course, I'm going to be a little bit of a sucker for.
For sure, yeah. You're going to love this. It definitely is a weird and kind of grisly description, though, of the autopsy.
I love that. I think that is absolutely fascinating.
My thought initially was, obviously it doesn't have organs or bones or anything, but maybe, the skin that is inside of their limbs, like their legs and their arms, maybe their head even, is so condensed and, maybe it's so hard that it almost resembles bones, in toughness and stuff, but maybe, maybe it's just a case of supernatural strength or something, because obviously we know, the if you don't have any bones or if you don't have any organs, you're not going to be living. But obviously, this is a entity that goes beyond our understanding. So that was definitely an odd experience for this guy, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Something else I wanted to mention on a more medical anatomy side is that it specifically says there is no muscle, which to me is absolutely fascinating on how they get around, because obviously, as I said, skin is kind of like our little stretchy coating that we have over us, whereas obviously when we move, it is a contraction of muscle. Everything we do, you move your leg, your arm, your finger, your face, you smile, you frown, you cry, anything, that is all muscle, and that entirely depends on the it comes down to the energy within your body required to be made by the mitochondria within your cells. The ATP is what allows you to have the energy to be able to do stuff and process. So considering that this creature doesn't have any muscle, no bone, no organ, and it can move, it's got to be supernatural. There is no way there's anything natural about it. Something occurred to me after the staff attack the other night. Every time you see a situation like this on TV or in a film, like it's the end of the world or everyone is trapped on an island or whatever, once groups like ours start to form, people always seem to turn on each other, fighting for food or dominance or whatever else. That hasn't happened here. Apparently people from other towns come by from time to time just to check in, or occasionally to trade if they are short on something. But everything is always cordial. Friendly, even. Maybe it's the threat of the staff, or perhaps the constant restocking of supplies in the shops, meaning there's nothing much to fight over. Maybe people are just better than they are generally given credit for. It's a nice thought. I think I'll go with that one.
A dozen people showed up at the gates this afternoon from a town called Trolleys. Apparently the staff broke through the walls and tore the town apart during the night. These 12 are the only survivors out of over 100. We let them in, obviously. One more point in the human decency column. Later, I asked if anyone knew how many of these towns there were out there. Between us and the new folk, we managed to come up with over 20 names. 20 towns filled with people. And who knows how many beyond that. The motto for this place should be, how is that even possible? Surely someone somewhere must be looking for the thousands of people that must be in here.
I've been in here for a little over 2 months now. Not that much changes, as it turns out. A couple of new people showed up. Same story as the rest of us. Nice little trip to IKEA, and suddenly they're trapped in Billy's bookcase's house of faceless weirdos. The staff attack the exchange once or twice a week. We kill them and haul their bodies off. Sometimes they hurt some of us first. They killed a guy called Jared a couple weeks back. It was awful, frankly. Turns out regular humans still bleed in here, even if the staff don't. We tried our best, but none of us here are doctors. Jared was a good guy. He deserved better. We all do. It occurred to me a couple of days after that, none of us were really looking for a way out of here. I don't even know where we'd start.
So this immediately brings up a point that I'd like to talk about. They don't get to choose what kind of people are in here, or like doctors, mechanics, chefs, people that can actually maybe survive better in these scenarios, because the people that come to IKEA, they're just looking for furniture and housing materials, and it's interesting because you get a wide variety of groups of people, but none of them really have the medical know-how to treat a deadly fatal wound, or survive if there's nothing food or able to be consumed in here. So it is very interesting that they've managed to survive this long, especially with how many towns that have been mentioned thus far.
Yeah, definitely. It's like those with the least amount of survival instincts get selected to pass into this SCP. Like,
for sure.
If you don't have the survival skills, it's like, oh well, we can put you in the SCP and we'll see how long you last, kind of thing.
It's almost like an experiment. Games. Yeah, it's almost like an experiment for like maybe a higher being or something like that.
Definitely.
It's fucking creepy. I'll say that. I definitely understand why this poor guy is getting so insane, but it's definitely helping, because like we've always said, humans are very social creatures, right?
Yeah, we are.
They need other human beings, no matter how introverted you are, because trust me, I'm the same way. But it's just in our nature, right? We need that guidance. We need that, feel that security. We need to feel socialize. We need to feel the social aspect of being with another human, right?
Yeah.
Whether that just be in a town like this, or companionship, or whatever it is, it definitely is helping him for sure, because even if he does sit and write these journal entries and he seems to be going crazy, it's not like he's too far gone to the point where he can't make rational decisions, obviously.
Yeah, 100%. And something that I think is that is chipping away at him is the death of Jared. So he seems to, I think it's finally like hit him that, you know, you can die in this place. I think it's the first guy that's died in front of him, you know, because he's been in there for 2 months. You know, he said, you know, there's been attacks, but like no one's really died. And then Jared sadly passes away, and he's like, Jared deserved better. Like, he was a good person. Like, this, he didn't deserve to be in here or die like that. And I think that is going to eat him up, because he's gonna realize that if you can't get out and you stay there, inevitably you're going to die to one of these creatures.
Yeah, and dying in an infinite IKEA does not sound like a good way to go out, for sure. One of those quadcopter things with a camera attached buzzed past the exchange today. I thought it meant that someone was finally looking for us, that help was on the way. But apparently it's not the first time this has happened. Same thing happened a few months ago and everyone's still here. No idea if it saw us. It didn't stop if it did, but it just kept flying until we could see it no longer.
I started talking to people about the stuff they miss from home during dinner today. Probably not the best idea I've had. Everyone seemed pretty down afterward. A bunch of people here have families, husbands and wives, kids, dogs. Franklin apparently has a pet llama, though I'm not sure I buy that. But apparently, some of the people here have some seriously odd gaps in their knowledge. 3 of them had never heard of the International Space Station. 2 of them seemed to think was the Prime Minister. And 1 of them had apparently never heard of the Statue of Liberty. I believe them too. They seemed just as confused as the rest of us. The more I thought about it though, the more it started to explain a few things. What if the reason no one is looking for all us missing people is because we haven't all come from the same place? This is going to sound weird. Maybe that should be the motto for this place. But what if all the people here have come from different dimensions, realities, whatever you call it? I've seen enough TV shows to know the drill. Sarah comes from a place where there is no Statue of Liberty. They didn't launch a space station where Wasim is from. If everyone here came from different places, even from ones that seem identical, there'd be no huge missing persons panic, no mass search. We'd just be a blip, a single missing person in a world of non-stop news. Well, that was a fun train of thought.
See, this brings up a whole different new, like, insane thought. Like, this answers like why they aren't even looking, right? Because
yeah,
like it says, in a world of nonstop news, they are just a blip. It doesn't, like, who is going to stop and search for one missing person that hard, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, they might put out a police investigation at the most, but we know, like, there's 100 millions of missing people that have gone cold in the world, right?
Yeah.
There's so many cold cases out there that this would be no different, right?
100%.
You know, they would probably just assume, well, he's dead. That's that would be the unfortunate truth, and it's a little scary because that just kind of made it real for me a little bit, you know? Like, it's you know, he gets transported into this dimension that we can't even fathom, and the dimension that he's taken out of, you know, it might not be ours, but it could be another thing. So it brings that sense of almost realism a little bit. So yeah. it's a little freaky. And on the point of, like, the multiverse and stuff, they have, like, different different obscurities. Like, they don't have the Statue of Liberty, or they didn't launch the space station. That's really cool that they have that kind of difference in that, because, you know, like I said before, it also explains, like, they came from different realities, which is also interesting, because it's kind of nuts to think about, but how that world turned out, you know.
100%. It reminded me of the fact that I think it was NASA that confirmed, by the way, in real life, by the way, I just want to point this out, in real life, that there is the existence of other dimensions. Do you remember that when that came out?
I did not know.
Yeah, so apparently, I mean, I could be wrong, so take this with a grain of salt, but I remember when everyone went crazy because NASA had, like, subtly announced that the existence of other dimensions was real. So that, not only does that, you know, freak me out or like fascinate me at the same time, but also this idea of other dimensions and people not finding them in this SCP, that is going to absolutely drain the hope that they even had
for sure.
of being found ever again.
Mm-hmm. And it's also a cool thought now that you bring that up. You know, if you think about it too awful hard, every single story that we've ever told on here and will tell could be real, you know, in that sense of infinite multiverses. So take that to sleep with you tonight.
Yeah.
Just realized that yesterday was the 6-month anniversary of my arrival here. I wonder if IKEA sells party hats. The routine around here has remained more or less the same. More new folk show up, one every couple of weeks or so. Food supplies go up and down, but we've never actually had a major shortage. Occasionally, we get a visitor from one of the nearby towns. Usually checkouts are aisle 630. We check in with each other from time to time, occasionally trading supplies if someone gets particularly low on something. It's comforting, in a way. A reminder that we aren't alone in here. Some small glimmer of civilization. Sometimes they bring medical supplies. Apparently, there's a pharmacy a few towns down from checkouts that gets restocked every now and then. So they share out what they can. I never heard of IKEA with a pharmacy before, but at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if someone stumbled on an IKEA organ harvesting lab. It would certainly explain the staff. Speaking of our faceless jailers, their attacks have been getting worse lately. 3 or 4 times a week now, with twice as many staff as there used to be. No idea where they all come from, or why the attacks have increased. We tried following one of them during the day a few weeks ago, me and Sarah. We wanted to see if they led back to a staff room or something, but they didn't seem to go anywhere though. Just randomly walked the aisles. We had to turn back before we found anything. We've been reinforcing the walls, trying to arm ourselves better. Certainly no lack of materials to use. Wazim has been making more crossbows, but it's pretty slow going. Too bad IKEA doesn't sell guns.
So for me, this brings to mind that, you know, they're not going to be found, kind of this idea that this is their life now. This is their civilization. Like, you know, they are making towns, you know, how we have towns in all countries around the world. This is going to be, that is their reality now, you know? Like, they have to forget the past life that they ever had. This is their life now.
It definitely feels like he's more accepting of it right now, which is really sad, you know? Like, I mean, like, it sucks. Like, he's leaving his old life behind, which is, it's a really sad thought, but he's been here for like 6 months now, which is like so draining. If you can imagine being in a new place you can't, you know, escape from. If you've ever been in a situation where you're in like maybe a week vacation, you know how that feels. It's difficult to get adjusted to a new area, even if you are there for fun, or, you know, you could leave at any time. It's a really different feeling, you know, getting ripped away from your own reality and then getting thrown into a whole new place where you have to not only learn the new things that everyone does, you know, their routines and stuff, but you have to also be able to survive every single day. You're fighting for just to live.
Yeah, it's got to be incredibly stressful. And another, like, I had 2 thoughts when, you know, we were reading through this, was first off, like, are there babies being born within SCP? You know, because obviously men and women are showing up.
Yeah.
So
for sure.
How many babies are being born? And also, let's say someone is on a vacation, a holiday in where SCP starts, and say for example somebody from a foreign country comes in and they get in there and they don't speak the language, you know, that's got to be terrifying.
That's gonna be, oh yeah, I would assume that would probably be worse than what this guy is going through, because you can't communicate with anyone, you can't trust anyone, right?
Yeah, you'd have to learn to speak another language, but without any help of, you know, Google Translate, as bad as it is. But you wouldn't have anything. It would go back to literally a classic way of learning to speak to new people with a new language. The attacks are getting bad now, almost every night, and with so many staff that the bodies almost pile high enough for others to climb the walls. I think we're in real trouble here. I think exchange is done. We got hit pretty bad last night. Not many casualties, but the wall is wrecked. We finally figured out why the attacks had been escalating too. A box of supplies had a chunk of one of the staff in there. No idea how it happened, but apparently a piece of one will draw them as well as a full body. Too late now in any case. There's too many bodies for us to haul away, and still have time to fix the wall before night. Candace has called a meeting. I suspect there will be talk of abandoning exchange, maybe try and get shelter at checkouts or something. It's already getting late though. I don't think we'll have time to make it. Maybe some of us will. I was fine for that first week out in the dark after all, but then how often can I keep getting lucky? I'm only writing this for a sense of closure, I guess. For me, or for anyone who finds this. If this is the final entry here, I hope whoever is reading this is doing so from the outside of this place. My biggest fear? If I do die tonight, I'll just wake up in here again in the morning.
Note: this is the last entry. It is assumed that while attempting to reach the checkouts settlement, he was separated from the rest of the group by pursuing a -2 instance and happened upon the exit.
So this brings us right up to, you know, where we were when we'd started this episode on, you know, the idea of finding a guy who had been chased out of the SCP and had sadly died to the -2 attacker. And now we know the history behind this guy, you know. That
We know his story, yeah.
Yeah, precisely. And that you can actually escape if you get, you know, lucky, as he said.
Definitely he escaped, but I mean, at what cost? At least we know exactly, you know, the experience of waking up in an IKEA start to finish and being with these entities and unable to escape, and it's like its own hell, honestly.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of Maze Runner. You know, they all go into the maze looking for a way out and they can't find it. They can't seem to find any way out of this maze and they think they are trapped in the glade forever. But they get lucky and they can find their way out. It's just, I don't know, I feel like it's a very mirrored type of essence of the story.
Definitely. It is definitely one of the better SCP stories that I have ever read in my life. So I think it is time finally to get back to what we know and love. So Lynx, everyone is waiting. What would you rate this on the horror scale?
Honestly, after reading this complete entry, this is so dystopian, so I think it's gonna get a solid 6.
Solid 6.
Yeah,
okay.
It's freaky, but people do survive.
Oh, for sure.
How about you?
I definitely see, here's the thing about this story. This story is very creepy and very it has an explanation for just about anything, right? Has an explanation for why they aren't starving, has an explanation of, you know, where all these other people are coming from, it has an explanation for why there isn't a huge manhunt going on, and it has an explanation of, you know, how they're containing it and what happens if you actually do escape, which you get an explanation for pretty much everything.
Yeah.
So as it's written very well. It has a lot of good points, good plot points, well-written characters. I think the main guy is very sympathetic. That you can kind of relate to him a little bit. The way he talks and the way he acts. He's a very smart dude. So that right there, I think the entire story, for me, it deserves an 8. I'm gonna give it an 8. Because one, it is one of my favorite SCP stories, and it avoids that normal trope of, hey, this main character's stupid, he's gonna make stupid decisions, and he's gonna get himself killed. Although he did die in the end, I don't think it was his fault. You know what I mean?
No, that's definitely not down to any mistake that he made.
I definitely think that he did everything he absolutely could, and unfortunately, he stopped getting lucky.
100%.
I think that is pretty much gonna do it for the story. But however, we do have a couple of announcements before we go ahead and end things today. We do have a lot of news for this channel because we have been gone for so long. We don't want to leave you guys with nothing, right? We wanna give you guys some stuff to chew on while we are making these longer, more in-depth episodes, because it does take a while to do these because schedules and life happens, and it's just how it is. We're two younger people trying to just make it in the world like everyone else. We like reading horror stories and bringing this type of content to you guys, but it does take a while. So that being said, we will have our own specific solo little segments that we'll be posting on this channel. So do you wanna tell the people about what you have in store for us?
Yes. So, my episodes, they are going to be very medical anatomy based. So I am going to be going through true crime, and I want to be kind of going over more of the medical aspect. So, for example, for my first episode, I am going to be covering the Black Dahlia murder. And I am very excited to share it with you all because I have been fascinated by this for a very long time, and I wanted to be able to express my interest in human anatomy and biology and medicine on this channel, and I feel like doing it in regards to autopsies and murders and other similar things, I feel like that is the best way to be able to connect with other people who also really enjoy it. And for those who, they see these stories and want to hear the medical side, that is for you guys as well. It's something for the both of us.
But if that sounds like it'll make your head hurt like it does to me, you can check out my little project I'll be starting called Internet Oddities. We'll be covering anything and everything weird and creepy video games like Easter eggs, videos, and anything else that I feel like is creepy enough to bring forward. The first thing we'll be doing is there's a creepy little Easter egg in Sonic CD that I want to show you guys, so definitely make sure to stay tuned in for that. We are a little rusty in this episode, so we apologize for any hiccups you may hear. But I think that's pretty much everything that we wanted to say today. Lynx, do you have anything to add before we head off?
No, not really. I feel like we really covered everything.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for watching this episode of the Purgatory podcast, and join us next time. And we'll see you guys later. SCP-300-8. Whoa. Holy fuck. Will become violent towards all other life forms within SCP-300-. All these dashes are pissing me off, dude. Oh my god. Alright. I got it. Just relax. We're good.
No, I believe in you.
Since containment began. Since containment. Oh my god, fuck me. Oh my god, what's wrong with me? Why is my
You
lips?
could be a beatboxer.
But if you're in the mood for something else, I will be essentially killing myself is what I'll be.